Rabbi Isaac Bernstein, Zichron Livracha, was a legendary figure. He served the Kehillas here in London and other places for many decades, and is perhaps best known for his Parshas Shiurim, now featuring on the Ul Parsha app, and despite the fact that they're over 30 years old, they're still hugely popular. And he gave these shiurim over a course of many, many years, and over the hundreds of shiurim that he gave, he said that the following idea, which I'm going to share with you, was the best idea he heard from anyone, anywhere. That's quite an introduction. And this is what he said. Parshas Shemos, we are introduced to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Pasuk says in Perek Beis, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayhi bayomim hahem vayigdal Moshe. And it was in those days Moshe Rabbeinu grew up. Vayetze el echov, he went out to his brothers. Vayar b'sivloisom, and he saw the burdens, the persecution of the Jewish people. Vayar ish mitzri makeh ish ivri me'achiv, and he saw an ish mitzri, an Egyptian, smiting, hitting an ish ivri me'echov, one of his brothers. Vayifen koi v'choi, he looked this way, he looked that way. Vayar ki ein ish, vayaches ha-mitzri vayit menei b'chol. He saw there was no one around. Vayit meneihu b'chol, and he killed the mitzri and buried him in the chol. We know there is something called paradise. There are different levels of understanding Chumash. Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Soid. The Pasha Pshat is like I just explained. But I think, said Rabbi Bernstein, in the name of an Alter Yek, an old German Jew, a totally different Pshat in the Pasuk, which I think is fascinating. Let's look at it again. But let's understand the background of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. He grew up, as it were, with a double life. On one hand, he was very meyuchas. He was the son of Yocheved, who was the daughter of Levi, the son of Yaakov Avinu. So he was a grandson of Levi, a great-grandson of Yaakov Avinu. His father, Amram, was the Gadol Hadar. So he was highly meyuchas. He lived in Jewish royalty. On the other hand, he grew up in the palace of Paro. It was Bisya Bas Paro, Batya, who saved him, and he grew up in the palace of Paro. So on one hand, he experienced Egyptian royalty and Jewish royalty. He lived this double life. Now let's look at the pasuk again. Vahi bayom mohem vayigdal Moshe. It was in those days that Moshe Rabbeinu grew up. Vayetze el echov vayar b'sivloisom. He went out and he saw Klal Yisrael being persecuted. Vayar ish mitzri makeh ish ivri me'echov. That is referring not to other people, but to himself. He had this inattention. Am I Mitzri? Am I Ivri? Who am I? Vayar ish Mitzri, Makeh ish Ivri me'echov. It's referring to him. He's got this tension, the Ivri part of him and the Mitzri part of him. Vayifen koi v'choi, vayar ki ein ish. He looked that way, he saw Ivri. He looked that way, he saw Mitzri. I can't live like this. You can't be a human being living this sort of tension, this double life. Vayach es ha-Mitzri vayitmeneu b'chol. He therefore smote the Mitzri part of him, divested himself of it totally, and became the great Moshe Rabbeinu. A totally different way of looking at the Pasuk, understanding this interesting background of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. I think the lesson, of course, is for all of us to live lives which are consistent and wholesome.